Well, USC drops another one, this time in very dramatic and gut-wrenching fashion to a very stout Ute defense. The question is what's going on with USC's defense? This was not the kind of offense that was supposed to give USC a lot of trouble. Matter of fact, most fans thought this game would be a situation where USC should be able to control the explosives and the flow of the game. That didn't turn out as Bryson Barnes turns into, he manifests himself into a modern day Vince Young, taking the Utes down the field for a game-winning score in a game that should not have ended that way. As always, I have Matt Zemek join us here on the show, which is your show, you guys. This is your show, is a caller-driven show, the only caller-driven USC call-in show on YouTube. And we want you guys to bring to us, what is your questions? What are your concerns? What are your rants about the state of the program? Please feel free to call in. The number is right up here, 888-997-4539, 888-99-Riley. Call us. What are you concerned about? What questions do you have about the program going forward? With that, Matt, your initial thoughts on what happened last night.
Well, that's it for Alex Grinch, or at least in a rational world, it should be. And it should also be it for strength coach Benny Wiley. Like this was, this was not even Washington or Oregon, two teams that are coming up in November. This was Utah with Bryson Barnes, no Cam Rising, no Brant Queefy, a very limited offense, which has been struggling most of the season. And you then allow splash plays early on. You get dump trucked early in the third quarter to fall behind 28-14. You do come up with some really good sequences. You play with some passion. Like, guys didn't quit, but there's a difference between playing with effort and passion and playing with elite skill and also playing with high football IQ. The passion was there. Like, the guys cared. You could tell. Like, Bear Alexander was really broken up. He was torn up when he watched from the sideline, but he made a careless play. He delivered a blow with the helmet to Bryson Barnes' helmet, just a careless play, which obviously hurt a ton. And, these guys are not disciplined. They aren't well coached. You can have all the passion in the world, but if you're not disciplined, you don't have a high football IQ, and you're not tough enough, and you're not able to contain Bryson Barnes when the game is on the line, you're not good enough, and you're not coached well enough. And Utah, for a couple things. First off, Utah did not play especially well. Like, Utah tried to give away that game, right? Utah was up the 2 touchdowns, then 28-17. Bryson Barnes throws a horrific pick 6. Great play by Kalen Bullock, but if you're Barnes, you have no business telegraphing that throw on what was a simple out pattern. And then Utah kicks to Zachariah Branch. How dumb can you be? You do not kick to Zachariah Branch in that situation. I mean, if you do, you make sure it's a fair caught punt with a lot of hang time, or you kick the ball out of bounds. You don't give Zachariah Branch any possible chance. So, like, Utah tried to give this game away, made a lot of dumb plays down the stretch. Utah dropped a pass on its final drive just before the Bryson Barnes run. But in the end, USC allows a 25-yard run to Bryson Barnes, who's no speed burner. Guys were still engaged in their downfield blocks, didn't turn, didn't locate the ball. Like, if Bryson Barnes gets a 10-yard run there, it's not really a great result for USC, but it's still okay because the ball was at the 47 after the false start penalty. So it's still going to be at the 37, 36-yard line. Utah's looking at a 53-yard field goal to win, but you give up a 25-yard run, and it's a 38-yard field goal. I mean,
yeah, that is a big difference. Every yard there was going to be instrumental. They did have one timeout left, probably to make one play over the middle, maybe. But you're right. There's no reason. That's my Vince Young comment about the whole situation, was the fact that they truly made. Now, listen, hats off to Bryson Barnes. The guy had a great game. He played about probably his best game, but then you got to start asking yourself that question. Why are these players? There's always this one player on the other team. If it's a Scatabo, if it's Vaki, who is I think it was last night in the Reign of Troy. They were talking about this. It just seems like every game there's a person that comes out of nowhere. The receiver, I'm blanking on his name again. The receiver for Colorado, who comes as a true freshman second half and puts up insane numbers. It just seems like this defense is giving career days to people that aren't these outstanding players. And it's so frustrating. The multiple personality disorder that this defense has, where they look stout. There were times last night in that game where I'm like, wow, holy! The storyline should be USC defense steps up and saves the day for the Trojans when the offense struggles. That should have been the title for this thing. But in the end, it isn't, because like you just said, Matt, giving up those 26-yard play at the end to set up that chip shot field goal for them was a backbreaker. Well, they were making them earn it all the way down the field. It's those breakdowns. There were a number of bad angles. The tackling was actually pretty good in this game, but you're seeing guys taking bad pursuit angles and getting blown up on that last play was just a very clear example of the things going on at USC. You guys were waiting for those phone calls. You guys let me know. We're having trouble signing because I have not got any calls yet. Checking the lines. They should be open. 888-997-4539. There's a lot to talk about. This is our Trojan Family Therapy session for the second time this season. USC's second loss, really wiping out any chance of them making the playoffs. And now it puts also the winning the conference in jeopardy, losing this early game when you still have three very tough games coming up against Washington, Oregon, and UCLA. Oh, we got our first call in. I recognize this number.
Against
Adam,
Washington.
Go ahead and turn your phone, turn the volume down for me really quick, and just remind everyone where you're calling from.
Sure. It's Adam from Milledgeville, Georgia.
Thanks for calling, Adam. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a depressing day. Man, I had higher hopes for USC this year, but my feeling is that everyone talks about let's fire Grinch. Okay, well, let's assume that we fire Grinch. What guarantee is that going to mean that our defense is any better? Because it wasn't really that good last decade. So, is firing the defensive coordinator really going to make that much of a difference? The second thing I want to say is, on offense last night, it kind of seemed almost like it was playground football, like Kale, dropping back and seeing if he could find an open receiver. It didn't seem to be a plan or have any balance. But I'm curious as your thoughts are about how the defense would change if Grinch was replaced and who would replace him. What do you think?
Well, I know what Matt's going to say. Matt's been very vocal. I'll let you go first about who he wants and who's available for the Trojans to take on going into the Big Ten. Matt?
Well, this depends on obviously what the candidate list is and which people are in line to replace Grinch, which people would be interested in a USC offer, and of course, which people would be inclined to say yes. Now, some people say that Jim Leonard, who is currently an Illinois assistant, wants to be a head coach. Like, he doesn't want to take another coordinator job. But you at least have to make a phone call to him. You at least have to ask him once Alex Grinch presumably gets fired on November 19, the day after the regular season ends. This is an interesting point. USC in the schedule does not play on Thanksgiving weekend. USC plays on the 18th. And then, the hope was to get to the Pac-12 title game. But since it's looking as though USC won't make the Pac-12 title game, November 18th would be the last day that the Trojans play a regular season game before their bowl game. So that would give the school and Lincoln Riley conceptually more time to look for a replacement. The USC might be able to be first in line just because its season is going to be ending 1 to 2 weeks before a lot of other schools. So, if Alex Grinch gets fired the day after the UCLA game, November 19th, then you're putting out you're making calls, you're talking to agents, and you're exploring how all of this goes down. You have to make a call to Jim Leonard. You have to at least see what he's interested in. You have to, make an offer which is as appealing as possible. And maybe he'll just say no, and maybe he'll turn you down. But there are other really good candidates out there. One name I've spotlighted is Tom Allen. He's the head coach at Indiana, probably going to get fired. USC would offer a landing spot for him. And with Tom Allen, who was a good defensive coordinator at Indiana before he took over the head coaching job. And a side note, Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix were at Indiana when Tom Allen was there. So like he has familiarity with DeBoer and Penix. Obviously, he's not going to coach against them next year, but Tom Allen would bring a Big Ten knowledge base to USC next year in 2024. He stands out as a really attractive candidate if Jim Leonhard says no. And there are some other defensive coordinators out there, and we're going to be posting a list of intriguing candidates at Trojans Wire on Monday. Like, I know he hasn't been fired, but like, we should already be thinking about names. And Jen Cohen, the athletic director, she should already have a list of candidates. She and her team should be doing that research. So, Adam, to address your question, if you get a defensive coordinator on par with Jim Leonhard, maybe it isn't actually Jim Leonhard, but you get someone on par with him, just by doing that, you get an upgrade. You get better technique. You get better teaching. You have a more proven track record. It would help to an extent. But Adam, I will say this. Yes, it can't be Grinch alone. It also has to be strength coach Benny Wiley. Out of here. He has to go because his regimen, his methods are not producing tough players. Oklahoma has an elite strength coach named Jerry Schmidt. He was there when Riley came in as offensive coordinator under Bob Stoops. When Riley ascended to the head coaching job, he did really well with Schmidt in 2017, but then Riley wanted Benny Wiley for 2018, and it's been a downward trajectory. Not a dramatic downward trajectory, but Riley's never been as good as a head coach as he was since 2017 with Jerry Schmidt.
Matt, you said that, Matt. You said that a couple of times. Matt, you said that a couple of times now. Can you get the backstory of why Schmidt was let go? Do you know the story behind that?
I mean, pretty much Riley wanted Wiley as his guy. Like, he didn't think Schmidt was doing a bad job. Just Riley had targeted Wiley, and he wanted him. That's to the extent of what I know. That seems to be the case. But there is a gap between Benny Wiley and the elite strength coaches in the country. And when this kind of stuff keeps happening, it isn't just a Grinch problem. So like, if anyone who's saying that, yes, it's not just a Grinch problem. It is also a Benny Wiley problem. The Utah people, like, I did a radio hit in Salt Lake City last week, and they told me Kyle Whittingham and Utah have an elite strength and conditioning program. And like, you can see it, like they're doing this with backups. They're doing this with walk-ons. Kyle Whittingham takes these lower rated recruits, these lower profile players, pieces, and he gets the most out of them. He's been doing that the last 4 years. So like, it's not just X's and O's. It's also the strength and conditioning. Like, Utah definitely sets the bar a lot higher than USC does in terms of strength and conditioning. So, Adam, it's not just a Grinch thing. It needs to be Grinch and Benny Wiley. They both have to go, and hopefully Jen Cohen, like, we need to talk about her a little bit. Like, she inherited this job thinking, oh, I'm taking over USC football at a high point, and Lincoln Riley's going to be there with me, and I'm just going to make sure Lincoln Riley is happy. Whoa, this took a real turn. This really swerved. Jen Cohen now needs, instead of making Lincoln Riley happy, which, she has to do to a certain extent, but she also has to insist that Lincoln Riley is going to make necessary changes. And if Lincoln Riley doesn't, well, whoa, boy, we have a real big problem on our hands.
All right, really quickly, because we got speed. We got speed. Hey, 1 second. Sorry, I got a super chat coming in. DW2CB, thank you so much for $2 super chat. How the Crimson, you stole the Grinch D. So again, I'm not sure exactly what happened on defense. I've watched the game actually again on TV. It's a totally different experience watching it live. I'm not sure exactly what you meant. Everybody's been stealing this. So if you want to take your victory lap, it's fine. But this defense, outside of a couple of games, has not looked very good for quite some time. So it's not exactly what the Utes did. It looks like there's some issues we have here at USC internally. And for those people calling for, I'm seeing a list of coaches to be fired. Here's the thing. If they do bring in a Jim Leonhard, if they do get, like, I don't know, maybe an Aranda or someone like that somehow falls into our lap, they're going to bring their own guys. Sure, there might be some guys that Riley's going to say, I'd like this guy retained, like this guy retained. They're going to look at the staff, but it's usually not even an indictment on position coaches. Usually coordinators are going to bring their own dudes to fit their system that coach the way they want. So it's not exactly like it's going to piecemeal or whatever. If Lincoln Riley goes over after a top-notch coordinator, it kind of varies on how much. If that coordinator's going to take the job, you say, well, I'm bringing my dudes. And so that there will be wide sweeping changes. I'm not sure I see some names out here. I don't totally agree with some of the names being listed here as coaches. I think that, again, what I said at the beginning on Grinch was the fact that the only thing I've been positive saying about Grinch all along is this. His pedigree of people that are hiring him, I've said it from the beginning. When Meyer and Riley and Leach hired this guy, these guys know football. They know ball more than we do. Those guys I just named. They see something in him. However, at some point, when that potential does not manifest itself on the field in the play, then something is broken and something needs to be fixed. Hey, I'm sorry, we've been doing a lot of talking. Any other thoughts you have for us really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, great answer. Yeah, I just have one comment. I'll get off the phone. Last night when I saw the game, I thought the defensive line looked fast and physical. I thought the problem was the secondary, and that is where I think we need to improve. But I mean, do you think Riley is sticking with Grinch because he thinks it's the best we have, or they can't get anybody else? And what do you think is the motivation? Again, thanks, guys. Great answers. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you. Again, in your support of the channel. You've been great. You've been critical of me, but you've made great points. I will say this. I'll head over to Max. I'll try as fast and succinctly as I can. The D line has been the strength of this defense. I think they did a great job. I think Sean Nua has earned his medal. You know, he's definitely the guy that I've really been appreciating. I think he's one of the best in the business. Matter of fact, also as far as Grinch is concerned in defense, they were dialing up the pressure. They were getting in the second half. They made some adjustments actually, and they were getting to him. But things were breaking down. Remember about pass rush, you can be get up in the face, but you got to stay in your lanes. You got to keep containment. And on the last play we saw. Yeah, they got upfield. They're too aggressive. And what happens? You give a 26-yard scamper down the field to set up the game-winning field goal. So there's a difference between being aggressive, which you have to be, but also being disciplined enough to stay in your rush lanes. Make sure that you're fitting all the gaps, and you're not leaving the break in the pocket where you just over pursue and he just steps up and runs for 26 yards. Sorry, Matt, that wasn't succinct, but there you go. Great answer, guys. Thanks so much for fighting on. I appreciate it. Okay. Appreciate you always. Thank you so much. All right. That opens up the lines for you guys out there. Call us in. Call in. Let us know what you think. It's a rough day to be a Trojan. Some celebrating Sooners out there. Although, again, if I was watching the score my game, I'd be a little reticent to start talking about how great we are and we're so glad we have our coach when you're squeaking out wins on 2-point conversions against UCF. Next caller. Welcome to the show. You're on with Matt and Tim. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hey, this is Alex. I'm calling from Florida.
Alex, thanks for calling.
Yeah. So, can I go? Can I speak, or should I wait?
No, absolutely. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. No. So, I just wanted to kind of touch on the fact that I feel like while the defense hasn't been great, right? Like, obviously, like Grinch needs to be fired. Like, you should have been fired during the offseason, all that stuff. Like, totally agree with all those points, like 100%. But I still think there should be some accountability still on the offense because they didn't perform really well like the last 3 games either. They pretty much only scored 20 points this game. If you take away the pick six, if you take away the punt return, I don't know if they really score on that last drive if we don't get that huge punt return either. I think that while Lincoln Riley, he has been a great offensive mind. I don't think we should fire him by any means, but I think there should be some sort of like maybe reevaluation of like how he's calling things. Like his answer during the press conference just was like incredibly disappointing in regards to, I have a great track record in the past and all. Yeah. It's like, well, dude, like, right. Just hold some accountability, like it's not, what I'm not saying he should be fired. Like, I still think he's the guy moving forward, but I think there has to be some sort of evaluation about how he's calling these games, how he's scheming things. Like, it just doesn't seem like, things have been, playing out well over the last couple of weeks.
No, you bring up very, very valid points. There is definitely something broken on the offense. I think last night, it was I think it was LV Trojan. He brought up the point, and we've been saying on this show, and many other shows. I know Tony said it as well. He's not taking that simple dump down pass. He's looking 20, 30 yards down the field. And also, one thing that makes him really special is his running, and he seems reticent to run. Things we saw last year from Caleb, we're not seeing. I'm also going to throw it out to both of you guys. There has been an added component. We thought it was going to be a benefit to the program. There's one thing we didn't have last year we have now, and that's Cliff Kingsbury. Is maybe too many cooks in the kitchen messing up the stew or whatever. I don't know. My wife makes fun of me all the time for screwing up idioms, but you know what I mean. You have a situation where everything was, now we will throw one more thing I just thought of. Sorry, I'm dumb not to say this, but the offensive line also has had issues, and the offensive line was better last year. However, I think I'm giving a B to the offensive line, although they gave up 4 sacks or 3 sacks. I can't remember 3. A couple of those were just simply on Caleb for pocket presence and not getting rid of the ball and having them hold these blocks long enough. I'm surprised we didn't have more holding calls. So short story is there's definitely something broken with the offense. My question to both of you guys is, do you think it has to do with Cliff Kingsbury? What's going on with his pinky finger on his throwing arm that's heavily taped? And do we think that he's just reticent to run the ball and not take that, that 5-yard out or that slant or that, hitch that's right there in front of him instead of going downfield so much? Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, last night there were a lot of quick hitch passes. USC threw a lot more of the short passes that you and I have been talking about, Tim, to slow down the opposing team's pass rush, to get a little bit of rhythm. There were a lot more of those passes. Like Caleb was making those sidearm 3-4 yard throws. But like the first 2 drives were perfect. First 2 drives was like vintage Lincoln Riley, vintage Caleb Williams, everything that we hope to see. And then poof, not one other, finished touchdown drive. Like the 11-yard drive isn't really a drive after the Zachariah Branch punt return. Like those first 2 drives were it. And Caleb Williams was missing throws that he would ordinarily make, not piece of cake throws, but, like Zachariah Branch got open a few times. There were a few other receivers that got open, and he airmailed them, and he was off. And this is a thing that Caleb Williams going up against good defenses, his numbers are much worse than against middle tier and lower tier defenses. And like, I was not prepared to say this going into the season, but I have to say it now. Caleb Williams has regressed. And that's the thing about Kingsbury. Kingsbury is supposed to be another voice in the room, another source of wisdom. He's coached Kyler Murray. He's coached Johnny Manziel. Like, been there, done that. He has coached Patrick Mahomes. He has so much experience and wisdom. You'd think that Caleb Williams was going to just soak up more expertise, get a fuller understanding of how to play. We're not seeing that. And so Kingsbury, whatever's being said, it's not adding value. It's definitely not showing up on the field. And that's surprising because, Kingsbury at Texas Tech, he was a flawed head coach. He was a flawed head coach because, like Lincoln Riley, he didn't give a bleepity bleep about defense. Remember, Lincoln Riley was on the Oklahoma coaching staff when there was that 66-59 Oklahoma Texas Tech game, the Baker Mayfield Patrick Mahomes game. Riley and Kingsbury were on opposite sides of that game. Like, Kingsbury got a lot out of his Texas Tech quarterbacks. He's never really failed in terms of teaching quarterbacks how to be better. So that makes it surprising that Caleb Williams has regressed this year. But he has. Caleb Williams has been ordinary for pretty much the past month. Arizona State was sloppy. Now Colorado was really, really strong. But then Arizona was up and down, and Notre Dame was a disaster. And this was, ordinary. And so Caleb Williams being ordinary for the better part of a month, none of us expected that, but that is the reality. And so it's all part of a larger picture in which players, whether that you're talking about Caleb Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner, or guys in the secondary, receivers, offensive line, we have not seen high-level player development for the most part. Like Mason Cobb, who really came on in the Colorado game, and seems though he was steadily improving. He missed 4 tackles last night. It was not a particularly good night for Mason Cobb, and this is a seasoned, proven veteran player from Oklahoma State, and he's not on a steady upward trajectory. Like USC needed a lot better from Mason Cobb in this game. So whether it's Kingsbury, whether it's, the offense is not doing what it was supposed to do. The offense is actually worse than it was last season. And, to me, I don't think it's a play calling thing, because we saw Lincoln Riley dialed in with the play calling last night. And then people are going to say he should have run the ball more. I think the short passes early on, getting 4 or 5 yards on first down, like that should put you in a good position. But then the follow-up plays, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, those are the plays that usually where Lincoln Riley gets a downfield shot. He gets something big, whether to a receiver or with a running play, and USC isn't hitting those plays. And the offensive line, which was just absolutely perfect, and we had Tarquin out, and we kicked Jarrett Kingston to right tackle, really seemed to work the first few drives. And the pass protection generally was better. But, here's a key point from the Utah game. Utah was able to run the ball a lot better than USC in running situations. When Utah needed to run the ball, it did a good, not great, but good job of being able to get the ball down the field, relieving some pressure from Bryson Barnes. When the game was tied or within 1 score, USC was not able to run the ball well against Utah. Now, people will say, they didn't run the ball enough, but Marshawn Lloyd had that early run. After that, Marshawn Lloyd, bobbled the swing pass, and then he fumbled. So like that also put a monkey wrench in USC's plan. So it's not I don't think play calling seems like a scapegoat. Play calling seems like a distraction from the larger reality that at some point it's just about every USC player is making a mistake, and you're not getting solid across the board player development this season.
Yeah, Alex, anything else for us?
But isn't that still coaching? I was going to say, like, in terms of player development, isn't that still come down to coaching? I mean, like, whether or not, like, they're calling the plays right or they are calling it right, like, if players aren't showing up and they're committing bad penalties and they're not, following the right trajectory, that they should be following, like, isn't that also come down to still, like, the offensive coaches not,
player development.
Right
player development is ultimately on the player itself, to be honest with you. But it's the coaching staff to get them there, and then the player to put in the time to get there. But at the end of the day, if the player and the coach, so let's say the coaches coach you up. If there's different types of players. There's guys that are driven to get the NFL. There's special guys. They're the Michael Jordans, who are the best guy on the team, but still sitting there afterwards shooting 100 free throws, get better at what they're doing. Right? Those are the guys self-driven. Sometimes you also have the guys that really just don't love the game. There have been people knocked around about they have all the ability in the world, but they don't have the headspace to get better. That's on the player. But the coach has to have a system they can play in that uses their talents properly, putting them in proper position to make plays. And then ultimately, if they aren't doing that, it's on the coach. Get them off the field and get someone on the field that can. So yes, everything you said is true. It's just specifically, you can't put 100% of the players develop on the coach, because maybe it's the player. But in general, those guys are on the field. You have an 85-man scholarship limit. You need to get a guy on the field that you can develop and get put in a position that can stop someone from getting 26 yards on a crucial play at the end of the game to set up a game-winning field goal. That's it.
Yeah. No, my last thing I'll end with is just, moving forward, I would like, Lincoln Riley to take some accountability if the offense is sputtering in some of these games. I mean, I just feel like, if he's asked about it, it shouldn't just be like, well, I've done this great thing in the past. It's like, well, you do that at a different school, one with a significantly lower or higher acceptance rate with a garbage degree. But it was a different school, not USC. We're looking at your production here. You know what I mean? Like, that's how we're evaluating you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Logan's point. Grinch scheme might work very well in the NFL. where you have unlimited, not unlimited, but you have practice time. Guys are dedicated just to playing football, and you have superior athletes. However, if you do not have, it appears that Grinch, the system he wants to run, he doesn't have NFL lockdown bookend corners, to shut that part down. And he doesn't have he has this year, actually. He does have the pass. He does have the edge rusher for what he wants. He does have the nose tackle, but there's pieces he's missing to make his scheme works. And those holes, decent coordinators are coming in and they're taking advantage of it. And that's what we're seeing on the field. All right, man. Hey, thanks. We got to move on, but we really appreciate your call, Alex. Please call in next time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. All right, fight on.
Yeah.
All right, so the rest of you guys, that opens another line for you guys. Go ahead and call in 888-99-Riley. This is your show. We know a lot of you are upset. Call in. Let us know what's going on. Matt, one thing we haven't heard from a Sooner fan yet. They make up, 40% of our chat, but apparently they don't come on here and share things. That's not true. We heard from Chris last week. New caller. Hi, you're on with Tim and Matt on the Trojan Family Therapy 2. What are your thoughts?
Hey guys, this is Ross from San Diego calling in again.
Ross, thank you so much, man. Oh, Ross or Russ? It's Russ,
man.
Right?
So, yeah, Russ with the U.
Russ. Got you. Okay, thanks. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I like a lot of what you guys are saying. Everyone who's calling in is making good points. There's sort of a question that's hanging around right now about what would we gain from firing Grinch? And I am here to tell everyone what we would gain, because I think we need to look back at how the fan base was when Helton was the coach. And, the fan base had moved on from the front office because it appeared that it became an untenable situation because Helton wasn't the guy, clearly. And it seemed like the front office, and I say front office, it's not a front office in college, but the AD and Folt and whatever, they dragged their feet firing Helton, and we just felt that they didn't care about football, and it became untenable. Now they hired Lincoln, so they're off the hook. Now, with Lincoln, he's sort of an institution. He's kind of the guy calling the shots. And what I'm seeing right now, the feeling that I'm getting is the beginning stages of how we were feeling about, when Lynn Swan was the AD at the early year or two of Carol Folt, when she opted not to hire Urban Meyer because of, all his personal issues. We decided to bring Helton back, and then, Kingsbury, jilted us for the NFL. And I think that Lincoln needs to really, this is a moment for him. And, I would liken this towards, listen, we're all older here. I don't know if anyone's been cheated on. I don't know if anyone's done the cheating, but, when something like that happens, it's a hard to get back to a place, like a tenable position of trust. And I'm seeing the beginning stages right now where the fan base is kind of questioning, does Lincoln have it in him to do what's necessary to win? I like Lincoln Riley as a coach. First off, he has another 8 years on his contract. We can't fire him. We shouldn't fire him. All these people saying fire Riley, that would be an $80 million buyout. That's not going to happen. We kept Clay Helton around when we didn't fire him until he had 1 year left on his deal, and he didn't have 3 Heisman Trophy winners to his name. So we need to just forget this idea of moving on from Lincoln. He's going to be our coach unless he goes to the NFL. But I think that it is time. Grinch clearly isn't the answer. There was an argument last year that he just didn't have the horses to succeed. I think this year he had the horses to have a top 50, top 40 defense.
Correct.
And the defense has been a little bit better, as far as individual performances. We don't have a whole team that can't tackle. We have players that do step up from time to time, but this is sort of an inflection point. And, I think he needs to go. Lincoln Riley needs to keep the fan base because he is locked in here. Unless the Cowboys job opens up. And I'll let you guys go. What do you guys think?
Russ, good points. I'm not as worried about the Cowboy job as I would be, again, the Chargers or the Rams opening up. I think he likes where he is. I think he's got young girls. I think they're probably great. They are the grade school age. I don't think he seems like a fan. He seems like more than anything that he is a family person almost first. It just does. I don't know, but it just appears that way what he's talked about in public. I will say this is a quote from Riley last night to all the people that say he's going off to the NFL. He says, "We're not going anywhere. We signed up to do this for a long time." Now, I think people are hearing a lot of the comments that I postulated. I don't know if it's any water to it, but he's just lost Dave Nichols to cancer. He doesn't want to be an old man. He wants to know what this world is like. That's why he made that comment probably off the cuff during an interview. And I will tell you, I'm not even on his high pressure interview thing. You get up here and you talk, you're going to screw up and say something. Maybe it'll be misinterpreted or whatever. The way it was, the timing was bad with the Notre Dame game. But I will tell you, one, I don't see Riley going anywhere for a while. I think he is a college coach. I think he enjoys what he's doing. That's one. Get that out of the way. As far as him and the coordinators and the jobs that he expects of his team, that he is a good head coach. You're kind of saying, you're really saying a lot of what I said last night. And Matt, sorry, before I go on too long, Matt, go ahead.
No, the caller is exactly right. And Lincoln Riley has to show that he can fire his friends and just get the very best people to surround him. He does not have the very best. No one can say that Alex Grinch is an elite defensive coordinator. No one can say that Benny Wiley is an elite strength and conditioning coach. And this is why, really, Jen Cohen, she's the person of the hour right now at USC, because she has to go up to Lincoln Riley and say, hey, I want you to be happy. And I definitely took this job as an athletic director, wanting to just, allow you to be happy and to run this thing as you see fit. But, this is not acceptable and changes need to be made. Lincoln, what can we agree on in terms of changes that need to be made? And if Lincoln puts his foot down and says, Jen, I'm not going to make any changes, I want to stick with my guys, well, then we have an impasse. And then we have a really highly problematic situation. I'm not saying that is the situation. I'm saying, if conversations haven't been had yet, and they might not be, but let's say USC loses to Washington by 25 on November 4. One would think, if that happens, that Jen Cohen and Lincoln Riley are going to have a very difficult but necessary conversation where Jen Cohen says, hey, there have to be changes here. You can't just do this without any accountability, without any changes being made. And then, how would Lincoln Riley respond in such a situation? Now, there was obviously a lot of heat on him to fire Grinch after the Cotton Bowl. He stuck by Alex Grinch, and there was a sense of, all right, give him another year. Like last year was year one. You were just settling in. You were trying to establish something, and while it wasn't immensely satisfying, you could certainly accept the reasoning. You could certainly accept the logic behind that. But as the caller said, this was the prove it year. This was the year Alex Grinch had to demonstrate, good or bad, if he was really fit for this position. And he's clearly not reaching the standard. He's clearly not delivering the results that were expected. Jen Cohen has to step in and say, Lincoln, you have to make some tough choices. And here's another thing to mention, just in terms of Lincoln's history at Oklahoma. He inherited Mike Stoops as defensive coordinator. So when Oklahoma's defense crumbled against Texas in the 2018 Oklahoma-Texas game, it was actually easier for Riley to fire Mike Stoops because that's someone he inherited. He did not hire Mike Stoops for that position, and he replaced him with Alex Grinch. So Lincoln Riley has not had to fire a friend as defensive coordinator yet in his entire head coaching career. And Jen Cohen has to navigate those waters. She has to say, maybe perhaps with more finesse, but she certainly has to convey the central point. Lincoln, I know Alex Grinch is your guy. I know he's a friend. I know you wanted to make it work with him. I wanted to make it work. I wanted to see you succeed with Alex Grinch. But Lincoln, we are paying you for excellence. We are not paying you for 8-4 and the Las Vegas Bowl, which is pretty much what's going to happen. Could be the Sun Bowl. We're not paying you to go 8-4, 7-5. Let's stop.
let's not guess what's going to happen. That is your estimation. That's fine.
Well,
Listen,
that's
caller,
where this is heading. That's where this is heading.
Very well could be. Caller, we need to move on. I'm sorry, I'm losing callers because it's not your fault. It's kind of our fault. We need to move a little faster through these calls.
No worries, man.
But we appreciate you calling in.
Let's get some more people on. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get some more people on the line. Thanks as always, guys. Fight on.
Russ, awesome call. Fight on, man. Okay, let's see. All right, so then. Oh, you hung up. Sorry. I don't know if I dropped you. I'm sorry. Please call right back. Here we go. Hi, you're on with Matt and Tim. What are your thoughts? Where are you from?
Hey, this is Mike from Virginia. Just wanted to offer up, I don't know if it would be a reality or not, but clearly Caleb is playing with zero confidence. He's not being a leader that the Trojans need on offense. Just looking at him on the bench Saturday night, he's clearly not somebody that's going to lead the Trojans, especially in challenging times and in close games. And just wanted to get your thoughts on how likely it might be that they switch out or how much better the Trojans can be with putting Miller Moss in there. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike, for calling in. I have all the confidence in the world as Miller Moss as the backup in this situation, but no, I don't think that we upgrade. Now, I think I see where you're going with this. I have seen, Matt, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I have seen his demeanor change on the sidelines between winning games, losing games. In the games we've been doing rolling, he has been very vocal. He's getting there with his linemen. He's talking. He's been running. And I have noticed the last couple of games that he kind of hasn't had that fire in him the last couple of games. Curious your thoughts on that as well.
You know, when I look at Caleb and I look at this USC team, like, folks, I don't see laziness. Like, this is not a laziness issue. This is not a try hard issue. Like, guys care. You know, Caleb, being sullen on the bench at the end of last night's game, it's because they lost. Like, he was on the sidelines and the defense gave up that last minute drive to Bryson Barnes, and reality was setting in. That's why Caleb was unhappy. I think there's a little bit too much psychoanalysis. I don't need the very end there.
I'm sorry, Matt. I probably didn't pose it to you correctly. In previous games, when things haven't been going right during first quarter, second quarter, third quarter on, I've seen him very fired up. I've seen him in the offensive line, when they come off to the side, they're talking. I've seen him in there, hitting shoulder pads, getting into his guys, say, let's go, let's do this, blah, blah. I don't know. Maybe it's been the coverage, maybe it's the footage, but I mean, at the home games, I could watch him on the sidelines, and I do watch him on the sidelines. That kind of hasn't been there the last couple of games. I'm wondering if there's an overall team issue going on that's simmering below the surface. I have no inside information on that. I'm just simply saying things just don't seem the same as they did the first 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, well, the first 5 or 6 games they were winning, but the other point is that the strength of schedule, has really jumped up and increased the last 2 weeks with Notre Dame and Utah. So like that has exposed things about this team that the early season teams weren't in a position to expose. I mean, even though the Arizona game was close, there was an honest thought that, USC was just looking past Arizona to Notre Dame. So I don't think a lot of things have set in with the players. I think the players going against those first several teams in the lower half of the Pac-12, they thought, we didn't play our best, but we'll turn it on against Notre Dame and Utah. And then now that we're seeing, well, no, they didn't actually turn it on against Notre Dame and Utah, then people are discouraged. And Caleb is one of those people who is discouraged. I think a couple of things here. One, we need to remember the leadership in the locker room last year. Andrew Voorhees, Brett Nealon, Justin Dietich as well. But you had Voorhees and Nealon there. You had Travis Dye. Travis Dye's presence in the locker room and on the field last year, how much did it mean to that USC team to have Travis Dye as a very connective, cohesive presence for that team? Where are the other leaders on this team? They're really, it's not the same level of leadership in the locker room that we had last year from several different sources. And I'm sure Caleb Williams, to a certain extent, thinks, gee, do I have to be the leader for all of these guys? And he's feeling the strain of that. Like, that is part of it. The leadership on this team is not nearly as good as it was a year ago. So that is certainly part of it. And the other thing for Caleb is he's playing behind. Now, the offensive line was better in pass protection against Utah, but generally the offensive line has regressed. And so it's a lot more difficult for Caleb Williams to do what he does this season. And you combine that with just the general preseason expectation that all of this was supposed to be better than last year. And Caleb Williams is internalizing and absorbing the reality. No, it's actually worse than last year. Now, a leader steps up in the midst of that turmoil and chaos and really knits everything together. And clearly Caleb is failing in that regard. But like, this is not a Caleb Williams problem in the sense of his attitude is seeping through the team. I think it's very different. I think it's Caleb senses that he's been trying to get guys to buy in, trying to have the right mentality, but he can't do it all himself. And that is very true. The other people have to be there, but there isn't a Travis Dye. There isn't an Andrew Voorhees. There isn't a Brett Nealon. There isn't a Jordan Addison for this wide receiver room. And you're seeing just deficits across the board. And Caleb Williams is definitely feeling the strain of that, as well as the failure to live up to the expectations he had, not only for himself, but also for the team.
Yeah. Any other thoughts for us, Mike?
No other thoughts. Thank you guys very much.
No, fight on. Thank you. Great call. Great question.
Fight on.
Yeah, so there is a lot that needs to be sorted out. I would ask you guys in the chat, especially those of you guys that are guests, your criticism is more than welcome. Calling our players garbage is not. So again, make great points, be as critical as you want, but please, let's act like adults here, and especially if you're a visitor here, please try to be respectful. Next caller. Thank you so much for calling. You're on with Matt and Tim. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, how you guys doing? It's LV Live. How are you?
LV, great. How you doing? Really appreciate your call last night. How are you doing this morning? As you've
pretty good.
Had a night to sleep it off a little bit. Appreciate your DM too. I was right with you. You sent me on Twitter, so I'm with you on that as well.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I understand the whole issue with Caleb Williams and the problems that he has. I have to go against Matt here. Matt, the reality is this, Matt, he's our leader. He's the best player on the team. That's the expectation that comes with that, right? So if he's not, hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Hello? Oh, sorry. So if he's not playing up to that, he's got to be playing. He's got to be better. That's just what comes with it. Because my thing is this: were we bamboozled by the Heisman Trophy last year? Were we? Because when you get that title and you are that guy, the team is expecting you to raise up your play. That's what comes with it. And the reality of it, he hasn't been playing well. Now, yesterday, we were complaining about the line before. The line was great.
Yeah.
He missed a lot of throws. He just did. He was unsure. He was missing throws. He just did not seem like he has it. And what teams have been able to identify is in order to beat USC, you got to cut the head off the snake. And that's Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. And he just does not seem like himself. He just doesn't. I heard you earlier, Tim. You mentioned what I said the last time we spoke last night. I said those 5 to 7 yard throws, like, he's not making those. He's looking straight down the field. Guys are open. He's looking down the field, and he's missing throws. That throw that he had, the branch right there in the corner he made last year, he's missing that. He had that fade in the corner for the touchdown. The ball slipped out of his hand. He just looks rattled. He just does. We just have to be honest about that. Now, the whole thing with Grinch, listen, man, we were doomed when he brought him back. We understand that. And Grinch is pretty much, listen, the old saying goes, right? We could put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. We know what Grinch is. So I think he's still his fate. I don't think he's coming back. What say you guys?
I would say that agreed. I kept wanting, like I think actually LV, one of our really early conversations weeks ago, I think I said to you, I don't have a lot of faith in this thing, but I just keep hoping. I know we have the players. I keep hoping this scheme and everything clicks and they turn the corner, and they clearly have it. And I remember, if you remember weeks ago, I said, you know, until it starts costing them games, which is now doing, I think that you're not going to see anything major traction. Now you're seeing it along with, so it's costing them games, and the fact that teams that really should not have been in the games with it, and how, see, and it's not just losing the games, it's how the game is lost, meaning the same, we're giving up explosives last night to a program that was like 120th in the country in plays of over 100, of over 20 yards. So we are a team that gives up explosives, and we say, okay, well, we played a dynamic offense. You know, the kid plays out of his mind. Shedeur Sanders is a great quarterback. That's why they give these explosive plays. You know, and then we had to stretch it saying, Scatterbo, man, it's hard to tackle, blah, blah. But when you're making Bryson Barnes, who, again, credit to him, he took what they gave him. He balled out. I don't want to take it away from the Utah Utes, but this is not an elite quarterback. You know, with a minute and change left in the game, they should not be going 60 yards to set up a field goal to win the game. And that's exactly what this defense allowed them to do. And that's why change needs to be made. The offense won the game. The defense put them in position to win the game. But then when it came down to the last drive, you know, the defense actually got them back in. They sparked it, right? You got to remember that interception by Kalen Bullock. And Matt, you did say that you questioned Barnes' choice. He had guys we were getting tackles for loss. We were in the backfield. We were harassing them, and they had to get some yards because otherwise they're putting the ball and SC's getting the ball at midfield. So he did force one, but the defense forced him to force one. So I'm giving credit to the defense for the interception, credit for the pressure, credit for led to what happened. But it was the defense that got him back in it, and the storyline could have been the defense saves the day. But again, like I said last night, we made Bryson Barnes look like the second coming of Vince Young, march down the field and get a game-winning score.
But here's the problem is this. Grinch and that defense is making everybody look like the second coming of Vince Young. Everybody. Everybody. So when is enough? Like you got to be good enough to where you say, okay, there's a minute left. That they got to drive 60 or 70 yards. That's when you strap it up and you make plays. It seems like it's the same issue every week, you know, and so you just have to be honest with yourself with that. But I think the biggest problem of it all is no one saw this offense doing what it's doing now. So now it's a bigger issue. And I do see some issues with Caleb. I really do. He seems rattled, guys. He just does not seem like himself. All right. But listen, that's my call. You guys are doing a great show as always. Tim and Matt, fight on from the East Coast, guys. We'll get it together. Don't worry. Fight on.
Fight on, LV. I always appreciate you calling in. And credit Michael Castillo. I don't know if you're still can hear me. He's the one that said it. Literally, there's been this guy comes out of nowhere who's not a big name college football fan, is not going to make any All-American awards, that comes in, and USC's defense always makes him look like an All-American. Next call. Hi, welcome. Thank you for calling. You're on with Matt and Tim. What's your name and where you're from?
Hi, guys. Dave from Iowa.
Dave, how you doing? Nice to hear from you again.
Good. Awesome. I can hear you, Matt. Let's go. We're off to a great start, unfortunately, after a poor performance yesterday. But hey, so I just got a main question that I'm not sure if anyone really talked about it, but how does the number one offense in the country not have an offensive package in terms of the skill position players not needing to sub out? I did hear a lot of booing from the fans that Utah was subbing out late. Hey, that's the game. If offense subs, defense subs. That's the game. But how come the number one offense in the country doesn't have a package for a situation like that? To me, honestly, that's what kind of cost USC's offensive momentum and potentially, potentially the overall game.
No, astute point. I was thinking the same thing last night with all the different changing and swapping guys out. They couldn't play fast when they probably wanted to play fast. We allowed them to dictate our flow, our pace of the game by all the substitutions. Yeah, a bit surprising that is the case. Matt, your thoughts on that?
I would say, why don't we run hurry up offense more? You know, when your offense is inconsistent, when your offense is struggling, hurry up is often the very thing to get that thing kick-started, because that then that the rationale behind using the hurry up in a non 2-minute drill type situation, final 2 minutes of the half or the game, is that
we lost Matt, but that's your point, right? That's the point you're making, Dave, is the fact that by substituting, we're allowing them to change the pace and just kind of have guys. And what kills me is on that drive where we end up getting that fumble and then sticking for 3 points. That guy took so long to get off the field. Everyone in the stands were freaking out, screaming, hike the ball, snap the ball, because that guy was taking forever to get off the field. The referee allowed them to get the game, let the snap come off, and they didn't snap the ball. That was really frustrating. That guy took another 5 seconds to get off the field. They had 5 seconds to snap it, and they're looking back over a check with me. When they could just snap it, they got a free 5 yards. But you're right. I mean, they do need a package or a situation when they want to go hurry up. They know they can't substitute because then that allows the defense, obviously, to dictate the flow of the game. Great point. Anything else for us?
No, yep, that's that. I understand it's a call-in show and you guys got callers behind me, but I'll just leave it there.
Well, Dave, you did a great. Do you have another question for us? If you have a follow-up question or anything, we're more than ears for it.
It's not so much a follow-up question, but I was pretty interested in terms of the broadcast on Fox of how they were early in the game, they had the camera on Lincoln Riley, and I'm not sure how the mics are, but man, you could hear Lincoln Riley freaking really chirping at the refs or whatever. And to quote Lincoln Riley, he said, wake up, do your job. And from that point, I understand it's a tough job, but from that same point, from the fan perspective, Lincoln, wake up, do your job, coach this team as a head coach, not so much as an offensive minded coach who cares about the offense. Then, there's a space. Then there's the defense with Grinch. Yeah,
you make some good points. I will say that the USC was outplayed and there were bad calls on both sides of it. But there were some, look, it's the Pac-12. We know these referees are completely in over their heads. We've seen it for a decade. There were a number of very questionable, weird calls in that game. The no call on the pass interference down the sidelines. I mean, granted, it's only 15 yards, but that was terrible. Matt, your thoughts on Lincoln losing his composure to the referees? He's doing his job, by the way. That's what head coaches are supposed to do. But sorry, Matt.
When you lose and your team isn't playing well, all these things become magnified, right? It's also the same thing with Lincoln Riley shutting off players to media availability. It's also of Lincoln Riley saying some very Clay Helton-like things to the press. Like he said, we still sit in an advantageous place in the Pac-12 conference. Boy, that was Clay Helton sunshine pumping. But you know what? If you're winning and you're playing well, those externals and those peripheral things will stay peripheral, but they become very central and they become easy for all of us to look at when the team's not playing well. And so that's really the thing. We can look at all of these other things. They are symptoms of what's wrong with Lincoln Riley and what's wrong with USC. But at the heart of everything, the team is soft and there's no accountability. When mistakes are made and sloppiness persists from week to week without being nipped in the bud, who's accountable? Who puts an end to all this? And that is what a head coach gets paid very big money to do. That when mistakes are made, that they get fixed, they get addressed. This team is not fixing and addressing anything on either side of the ball, and we need that accountability. And that's sorry to bang this drum so much, but Lincoln Riley knows that coaches are hired to be fired, and he knows that coaches have to make tough decisions with staffing and administration. The idea that Lincoln Riley could go through his whole USC career without having to fire his defensive coordinator or his strength coach. I mean, I would certainly like to think that Lincoln Riley knew that, if things go south, I'm going to have to be forced to make some changes. Is he mature enough to do that? Well, we're going to find out in the next month, and it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, Dave, again, as always, thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for calling in, and we hope to hear from you very soon.
Thank you. Fight on.
Fight on, Dave. All right, before the next caller, hopefully, if I can go fast enough. Thank you so much, USC Gaucho. Tim, would you Would you support firing Grinch before next week's game at Cal? I see no reason to wait at this stage. Hold him accountable now. I think the decision probably has been made, but hold on a second. Caller, hold on 1 second really quick. Let me address this and I'll be right with you. So I think the decision's been made, and I think you can make a decision. Who knows? Maybe the decision was made before, even prior to this game. I don't know. I think at this point, I think you owe it to your team, because no matter what, I'm sorry, I'm not on board with anybody that thinks that the defense will improve if we fire Grinch midseason. I don't think it is. I think you're going to lose games you could have won. I think you owe it to the fans, and I think you owe it to the players in order to have a guy whose scheme it is call the game. I'm sorry. Someone give me a really good, besides we want to get revenge on this man. By the way, he's going to get paid no matter what, right? He's a contract. He's going to get paid. All it's going to do is we're going to show you, you weren't good enough. We're getting rid of you. I don't see an upside. Someone show me the real upside in firing him, because if you could fire him and hire your replacement right away and then get on board with recruiting, I think that would be helpful. But other than that, you're not going to – Jim Leonard's not coming tomorrow, right? Anyone that we're going to bring in, Allen's not coming tomorrow. So all you're doing is you're going to fire him because to make everyone feel better, I guess. I don't know, because there is no upside, Matt, unless you see an upside I'm missing.
Yeah, so, we discussed the idea of a midseason firing heading into the Notre Dame game. We said that, like if Alex Grinch gets his breaks beaten off by Jared Parker, the embattled offensive coordinator of Notre Dame, like then you could justify saying, all right, like we know this is rock bottom. We know this is never going to work. But USC's defense actually played well against Notre Dame. To me, that put to bed the possibility of firing him in the middle of the season. And this gets to the other point that I've been making, is that it's probably going to be difficult emotionally for Lincoln Riley to fire Alex Grinch. I think the Utah game definitely moved the needle in the direction of firing him, but you let Alex Grinch coach the rest of the season precisely because, this is Riley's guy. You allow Riley that space, that emotional headspace, to just give Grinch this final bit of runway. And that makes it easier, if you're Jen Cohen, to then come in at the end of the season and say, all right, we allowed Grinch, your friend, to finish the regular season, but now we have to make a decision about the future moving into the Big Ten. And Lincoln, it's time to be a grown-up. You need to fire your friend. So you don't do it now precisely so that you give Lincoln this space. Like the season is, it's not technically over. Maybe like USC beats Washington and Oregon, but that's like a 1% chance at this point. The season is essentially over with this Utah loss. So you allow Grinch to just finish this out, and then you have that really, important moment with Lincoln Riley if you're Jen Cohen, and you say, okay, we have 2 full seasons to evaluate, 2 full seasons as a body of work. Lincoln, this is not going the way we all hoped, the way we all expect. You need to now make a grown-up choice. So that's why you don't fire Grinch in the middle of the season. You allow Lincoln Riley to let this thing play out, and then hopefully you'll make it easier for Lincoln Riley to do the thing he absolutely has to do in late November, fire Alex Grinch and also Benny Wiley.
Yeah. Really quickly, it was Blessum Breaks. It was you who told me at the beginning of the season, and I kind of ha about the offensive line. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if you tuned into the show, but about 3 weeks ago, I gave you your props and said that I wish you were here because I would tell you that I was wrong. This offensive line is not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be. I bought the hype. I thought we're bringing in, freshman All-American, bringing the beef, bringing some big guards. I thought as a group that they would be able to help mitigate the loss of Voorhees and Nealon, and I was completely wrong. However, I'm not sold on the whole Henson thing. We have a great bumper crop of guys coming in. I've listed them over and over again. Alani Noah's even gotten some time. Even Van Waleson. They have guys that are going to come in and represent. We'll see how they go. I think it's too soon to tell on Henson, but I will keep giving you credit because you called it day one. If Henson ends up not being the guy, I will promise you to give you credit, but I think it's a bit early for that. So we have a caller. Caller, I recognize your phone number. But for everyone else, why don't you tell them your name and where you're from?
Oh, my name is Tim Pringley, Senior, and my home base is Seal Beach, but I'm enjoying Hawaii right now. A good release from watching that football game, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I
Dad.
recommend it to everybody.
I wish I was in Oahu with you
Okay,
then Saturday night. Trust me. So what are your thoughts? I think we talked about last night. I think even though you're talking about, you're talking about McKay, aren't you?
Yeah. I enjoyed the visit you had with J.K. McKay and the grandson, Jeff. It was a super visit. But going back to Coach McKay, I mentioned how he was almost fired after 2 years. But he also is somebody that would do something. He did it then. He did it in 1965 when he went to speed and bigger linemen when he saw he was not doing the right thing. And he went to defense first early on because he knew that's where it started. He didn't worry about offense because he was considered the genius of offense at that time. Sound familiar? And so, yeah, the thing is with this team, there's this old song, I'm a corn dog. Well, it was called Carry On. And we sang that song a lot when I was young. It's Carry On, Men of Troy, to another victory. Carry on, Men of Troy, with a thrill of 2 or 3. Do it may, you're still our Trojans. Come at me, you'll always be. Carry on, many of Troy, to another victory. Now, after 57 years ticket holding, I think I have a right to say that.
Yeah.
But I think we have to look what he told Pete Carroll when he sat down with him for 2 days. Pete's first full spring training, McKay's last spring training. He passed away, unfortunately. We all do it. And he got them tied in. First, you do the people that you want to bring in. Your
on the
recruits.
inside, right? The linemen.
First recruit. Yeah. First for the line, offense and defense. But before that, even you have the coaches, all the coaches, including the coordinators as well as the individuals. But anyway, back. So you get the line set. Then you make your defense, because he knew he could handle the offense. You make your defense strong. And he did a good job of it, as the record shows and as the names show. That is an important issue. You've got to have a balanced team. You can't just win with offense. You can't outscore them every time. We found that out. And so that's the other thing. The other thing about it is that Pete actually sat with McKay. And I think, the thing that really bothered me about the last 2 games was the games, yes, but the way Riley reacted to them. And when you tell me who Notre Dame is number 1, because I almost went there, but it's a very important situation for Trojan family. When you say, well, it's just another, non-important game.
Non-conference game,
it's not in the league.
Yeah.
Non-conference game. And so that doesn't fly well with a lot of the alums and fans. This game, I actually thought he started eating some humble pie. And I was more relaxed with it, quite frankly, because he said, I made mistakes, as did our players. And we all have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge, by the way, not to take anything away from Utah. They were well coached, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw a little bit of softness in that regard. But you got to go back to base one and start looking at what you did and what you didn't do. This team is kind of flying around, and you got to get back to USC. We don't just throw a helmet out there and think we can win, but we have to have the team to back it up. I could talk on, and I could talk about McKay on and on, but you can't give up on a team. You believe in the team.
And Matt knows where I get my optimism from, Dad. And listen, you've got, again, 57 years of experience watching these Trojans. I loved when you told me last night. So you're over to Oahu. You should be out there, having some fish and drinks. But you're calling me and talking about those McKay lines where McKay, where he said, my number 1 recruit is my assistant coaches. And I want Riley to hear that. It's not the players. My number 1 recruits are my coaching staff. And he needs to make some hard decisions. And I think you're right on that, Dad. And I do think that you start on the inside. Like you said, you work on the inside out. You've told me that for 20, 30 years, that defense starts on the inside out. And you also said, and defense, because he was the master. He was the the Lincoln Riley of his day. He was the innovator, not the innovator, or at least the biggest proponent of, if not the innovator of the I formation, which went on to be a staple of college football for years and years and years. So you're right. He had that.
He was the man.
He had the ability, the foresight to see everything coming, and he did. I love the fact that Pete Carroll first got there. He went and he asked John McKay about what his secret was about keeping the guys at home, right, and going out and getting NFL prospects from around the country. I think all of that. I think Lincoln Riley definitely needs to hear that kind of stuff. I think I do believe he's gonna make the decisions. And Dad, as always, I love you and thank you for calling in.
Love you, Tim. Fight on.
Fight on, Dad. Matt, any thoughts on Dad Prang calling in and giving us some knowledge from history?
Well, Papa Pringley is a wise one. Like he knows his stuff, and really, he said it all, that you can't just win with offense. You have to have a complete team and a strong team. And I would just say, Lincoln Riley failing like this in year 2, it really does magnify what Pete Carroll did building USC, right? I think that really puts things in perspective. And I would also say that really Pete Carroll at the start of USC, a lot of parallels with Brent Venables in Oklahoma, had the 500 season in year 1, getting everything sorted out. Like that was a mess at the start, but steadily built. And with Lincoln, he inherited these good pieces, Voorhees, Addison. Well, he didn't inherit Addison. He got him in the transfer portal, but he inherited Voorhees and Nealon and Tooley, some real team first guys, and was able to make use of them and bring in transfers, Caleb Williams most of all. But in terms of building an ethos and an identity, he didn't start with that. He had great pieces to work with in year 1, and he certainly made it work, but it's not that steady build, and it's not that inside out defense first. That's what Brent Venables is doing at Oklahoma. It's what Pete Carroll did at USC. And that proves Papa Pringley is right, which I'm sure Tim.
I've tried, just like with Mark Rogers. When I argue with my dad or I argue with Mark, I start out thinking I know what I'm talking about, and by the end I feel like a scolded child, So there's certain people that bring a level of wisdom and knowledge to them that you just don't want to mess with. But you guys, I haven't done. Speaking of scolding, I'm scolding myself. I've had just an overwhelming level of gratitude towards the chat and people here. Right now, we have over 365 people in the chat. And not once have I tried to help out the channel, you guys. We got to that 42. We got to that Ronnie Lott level. Now, I want to get us to 43, right? There's also a very famous 43 in the chat. You guys want to tell me? He also played on defense. Throw down that 43. Let's get to 4,300. We have 364, you guys. Even if you don't agree with me, which most of you don't, if you're enjoying the entertainment and the content, please, the greatest thank you could do for me right now is right down here in the corner over here somewhere. There's a little box that says subscribe. Please hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you know when we go live. Matt and I do this all the time. We have our Thursday night show. We do the call in at 6 p.m. Pacific. Oh, sorry, Friday. Sorry, it's Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Now that high school's over. As far as Bosco's home games, I should be more clear. But we go live randomly. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure that you are subscribed to us. And you can always help us out with a like. And then the key is that notification bell once you subscribe, because that way you'll know when we go live. You guys are all awesome. It's an awesome Sunday. It looks like our phone calls have dried up, Matt. Maybe my dad just did a drop mic moment and everybody's done. But any quick thoughts, and I'll give you mine on going into the week and what we could expect from Cal, because Cal's, a whole different animal.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I just think that this week is going to be one heck of a gut check for the defense. The defense needs to get things, I guess, not tighten up, but they need to get a situation where they have some kind of a mentality that they're not going to break down, that they're going to stop being so overly aggressive that they're leaving themselves open up to big gashing plays. Jay Knott is a guy that can house it at any time. And I think this is another offense that is kind of struggling at times that USC should, just like with Notre Dame and with Utah, should be able to contain. And that if the team scores 30 points, they should win the game. But these shoulds, could, will, whatever, want to, potential, that's done. Now you guys are against the wall and you have to do something. At this point, you're knocked out of the playoffs. One more loss in conference, good night chance of making that conference game and losing out on a great opportunity to be the last Pac-12 champion in a conference that you've been instrumental in forming. Sorry, we got one more call. Let me do this really quickly. This will be the last call. So, you guys, this is last call of the night. All right, really quickly. Oh, we lost them. And they were calling from Oklahoma, too. What a shame. That's why I wanted to grab Matt. We had an Oklahoma call. So, Matt, I'm just saying they're up against the wall. This is their last chance. This team, these guys are leaving for the NFL. Caleb, what kind of mark do you want to leave? There was a question earlier about is Caleb going to come back? Caleb is not, no matter what this record is this year, short of an injury or something, whatever, he is coming back. He is going to the NFL next year. So let's stop asking if this happens, if that happens, is Caleb come back? He's going to be a guaranteed top 5, most likely the number 1 quarterback taken in the NFL draft. Some people say Drake May might be there. I'm saying he's most likely 1 or 2, which means he'll be 1 or 2 in the draft. So he's not coming back. Matt, this is their last chance. Do you think they can do something and make a run here in the last end of the season in the Pac-12?
I mean, I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, going up against Washington and Oregon in November, I know this week is Cal, but the idea that USC can sweep Washington and Oregon, which is what it would need to go to Las Vegas for the Pac-12 title game, just, that's like a 1% chance at this point. I think against Cal, this is a time to play young guys. I think, if you can play some of the younger guys this week against Cal and you let the veterans look at this game from the sidelines, study some things, maybe that gives some guys a chance to not only rest up, catch their breath before Washington and Oregon, but if you can get these young guys some reps without burning a red shirt, I might add. If playing young guys against Cal means burning a red shirt, no, you don't do that. But if you can play some of the young guys without burning a red shirt, this is the time to do it. And you might freshen things up for everyone on the team. This is a final time to try some different lineup combinations, because it's not as though the various lineup combinations to this point have clearly done the job. So I would say play younger guys in this game. Let's see what guys can do. And, look, if you do lose, you were probably going to lose to either Washington or Oregon anyway. If USC had beaten Utah, the stakes attached to this Cal game would have been a lot bigger, and I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying right now. But because of the loss to Utah, because you have 2 losses, you can afford more afford to play the young players under these conditions if USC had lost to than if USC had beaten Utah.
Yeah, and Oregon, again, I'm with you. Mikey made a good point about the fact that, Washington looked anything but special yesterday. But, they're going to have those games. The elements can change things. But what I've seen up in the trip they're going up to Autzen, and what I've seen as far as defensively and offensively, it's not you. I think that Washington is not the team to beat. It's Oregon. The fact that we're playing them in Autzen, I don't know if a 1%, but I think it's very, very unlikely we will see both those guys. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Those teams also have some tough games coming up, not just with USC. Oregon's got to go to Utah, I believe, next week. And this Utah team, I'm just saying, they get them. If it was an Autzen, I'd say no way. Ducks win this one. But it's at Rice Eccles. And this team's got some juice to them right now. They might give them a hell of a game. And this defense is legit. This defense is probably the toughest defense that Oregon is going to see all year. Let's see if they can slow down Bo Nix in that offense. So great time, you guys. Thank you all for being here. I'm blown away. The response to this show is just absolutely insane. Thank everybody here for taking time out of your Sunday to come visit us. Want to hear some more calls? I promise. I know I talk too much. My goal for this show in an hour is to get through about 20 phone calls, because this is a therapy session for people. But I do want to thank Adam and Alex from Florida, Russ from San Diego, Mike from Virginia, LV from New York calling in, Dave from Iowa, and of course, my dad. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for taking the time to call us in. You guys are the show. This is the only caller-driven Trojan call-in show on YouTube, and we want to keep it that way. We may not be the last, but we definitely were the first. So your voice is what's important to us. We'll see all of you guys for sure tomorrow night. Remember, tomorrow night we have our show again. You got Matt and Tim again. We'll be here with Mark Rogers every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific. We have the Trojan Conquest live, which will be live for you guys. No call-in, but we will be covering the Cal game and talking about some of the issues we talked about. I know Mark wants to bring up how Caleb has done against that stat they showed against the top 25 defenses. We'll be going into that. Also Thursday, you can meet Matt and myself on our call-in show, our regular call-in show. We will definitely be going more depth against the Cal game. And then as always, you can catch us on right after the game on the post-game live show here on the Voice of College Football. Again, blown away with the response. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll catch you guys all on Monday. Everybody fight on out there.